Hello, happiness abounder, and welcome back. Today I want to dive right into the questions you should be asking around perfectionism. Now, I'm not saying perfectionism is right or wrong, that's totally your choice, but if you've listened to the last 3 episodes, you know kind of where my feelings are on it. But that said, one of the biggest things that we need to understand about perfectionism is sometimes it's triggered by a situation. When we can see why we're triggered by that situation, we can start to solve it and move forward. Because we already know that perfectionism does not lead to feeling worthy, to being and feeling deserving, does not lead to peace, and it certainly does not lead to happiness. So, that said, what questions should we ask to uncover our perfectionist tendencies in certain situations, and how can we resolve for that? How can we solve to resolve that? So, that said, the first question is, where do you feel the need to be perfect? Do you feel the need to be perfect in certain situations? A couple examples. Do you feel the need to be perfect in that business meeting? Do you feel the need to be perfect in your business, on your social media? When visiting your spouse's in-laws, or spouse's parents, your in-laws? When having lunch with a group of friends? You feel the need to be perfect before you start that podcast or that YouTube channel you've been thinking about. Where do you feel the need to be perfect? Example, for me, for a long time, not so much anymore, but for a long time, I felt the need to be perfect around my spouse's family. And what would happen is when I would ask, where do I feel the need to be perfect? That would pop up, and I would ask the second question, which is why? Why do I feel the need to be perfect when I'm around them? And for me, I realized it was because I felt like I didn't belong. I felt like I wasn't supposed to be there, like I wasn't wanted there. So in my brain, I thought that meant that if I was perfect, I would be accepted. So I couldn't make any mistakes. I had to dress impeccably. I had to have perfect hair and makeup. I had to have all these things to boost me up so that I could be quote unquote perfect. But what would happen is that I would make a mistake and I'd beat myself up about it. And then, if they made a mistake, I was trying so hard to be perfect. How dare they make a mistake and judge me on mine? Now I'm judging them on theirs. And I'm trying to bolster myself in my perfectionism by judging them because they're judging me. So here I am feeling like I don't belong, trying to be perfect to compensate for that, judging them on their imperfections, which in turn they judge me on my imperfections, which makes me feel even more like I don't belong and like I can't make a mistake, and so I continue to judge them. And you can see the cycle. Not very fun. Not peaceful at all for family get-togethers. Not me feeling whole and peaceful and happy. Instead, it just felt like a race. And every time I would turn around, there they were, right there, judging me. So I had to judge them back because I was in defense mode because I had to be perfect. And they could point out that I wasn't perfect. But I was diving into perfectionism because I felt insecure and like I didn't belong. Now, slightly different story because I don't have anything to prove. I'm not fighting for perfectionism anymore. I'm perfect for myself the way I am. And if I can not judge myself as harshly, I have a tendency to not judge them harshly. And if they don't feel judged, guess what? They don't judge me back. And the cycle stops. And you can have a great relationship from then on. So that's one example. Another example, let's say you are going to lunch with your group of friends. And you're like, I gotta look great. I gotta do this, I gotta do this, I gotta do this. And I just gotta be perfect because so-and-so in the group, although I love her, she's a little bit of a blabbermouth and she's gonna gossip with the other person in the group as soon as I leave. So there's no way I can authentically share that I'm struggling with anything. Instead, I'll just continue to paint the picture that they see on social media because that's what they're all sharing with me, and they have nothing wrong in their life, so I've got to be perfect because I don't want them to judge me. And what happens? You leave that lunch feeling like crap. I've totally been there. And here's the thing. When you do open up in those spaces, 9 times out of 10, one of the girls will reach out to you afterward and say, thank you so much. I was struggling so hard with something and you brought it up and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not alone. But when we try to shield with perfectionism, it gets us nowhere. Absolutely nowhere. So first, understanding what situations trigger you into perfectionism, and then understanding why. And usually the why is a case of insecurity and judgment around that insecurity. So then what can we do? We can work on ourselves. We can do our best to show up authentically. And how do we do that? You know I wasn't just going to leave you with like, show up authentically, thanks guys, bye, right? No, how do we come into a space where we're not striving for perfectionism, but we're striving for progress? You need to understand the reasonings why. You need to understand the situations that trigger you. And then you need to make game plans. You need to step into the opposite, in my mind, of perfectionism, which is vulnerability. If you can step into vulnerability in a space that you can trust, right? I wasn't going to step into vulnerability with my in-laws after years of this turmoil. But I started to step into vulnerability with myself. And once I started to get to know myself without the shield of perfectionism, I could start to see that I actually have a lot to offer. And I could start to see that maybe I do fit in. And if I don't fit in, I'm okay with that too because I like who I am. Because I could take that perfectionist shield down for myself. And in turn, as I started to show grace for myself, I could start to show grace for them, and now we can have a good relationship. And if those girls that you go to lunch with gossip about you after you're vulnerable, that's on them, truthfully. And you might get that vibe that they're not that great of friends. In which case, why are you wasting your time going to lunch with them? You know what I'm saying? And then you can take care of yourself and say, you know what? I think one of my priorities is I don't want to go to lunch with people that make me feel like crap. I want to spend time with people that every time I walk away from them, and I mean walk away in the sense of like, bye guys, love you, hugs, and then get in the car, I have a gut pit in the stomach, right? I have this pit in my stomach, this sinking feeling in my gut. I don't want to feel like that. And I don't want to feel tight and high-strung because I'm trying to be perfect around this group of people either. So start with, where do you feel the need to be perfect? Why do you feel that need to be perfect? And how can you bring that shield of vulnerability down for yourself so that you can make the decisions whether or not stepping into those triggering situations is the right thing for you or not? I'm not saying you have to step back into them. And I'm not saying go in and be vulnerable with a bunch of people you can't trust. Not saying that at all. But you can trust yourself. So be vulnerable with yourself. Understand and love yourself. And the rest has a tendency to fall into place. So I'm going to leave you with that today. Tomorrow we'll continue with this discussion about perfectionism and how our self-talk can really impact our mindset around perfectionism and vulnerability. So that said, if this episode resonated with you, I would love to hear from you. You can send me an email at taylor@happinessabound.com. You can send me a message on Facebook at Happiness Abound blog or on Instagram at happiness_abound. I would love to hear from you. Or if you like this episode so much, you'd be wanting to share it with someone else, then please go ahead and do that. Share with someone you love that might be fighting the perfectionist tendencies, and please rate, review, and subscribe on your listening podcast platform of choice. So that said, have a wonderful day. Check the reasoning behind your perfectionism, and above everything else, remember, You are capable of happiness abound.